Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Shimmer Read. Today I'll be starting off with another reading vlog, and that is going to be my August arc reading vlog. So for August, I am actually getting a really good early head start because I did start one of the books maybe like a week or so ago now, mainly because it is a chunker. Let's dive right into the books that I am planning to read for this time, or like my choices, my options for my August arcs. So my two physical books I have with me that I potentially might be reading, one I did start. The first one is The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. This one comes out on August 24th, so I have made some progress already. I'm already on page 344 because I knew that I would need some extra help with reading this book, and I will talk about this book a little bit more towards the end of this intro. But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. Next option that I have with me for physical books is Black Girls Must Die Exhausted by Jane Allen. This book seems to be about a woman, young black woman, who must rely on courage, laughter, and love to overcome an unexpected setback that threatens the most precious thing she's ever wanted. So basically, she receives an unexpected diagnosis that brings her picture-perfect life crashing down, jeopardizing the dream that she took for granted, and that is having children. So this seems like a really heart-hitting book for sure. So we'll see how this goes, guys. So as always, I have my laptop over here with three NetGalley options. I actually have more, but they were just sequels, so I feel like I'm not going to be able to read them. The first one over here is Mark of the Wicked by Georgia Bowers. It says it's a young witch tries to unravel the mystery of who is framing her for dark magic in this creepy YA debut fantasy. And that cover is certainly creepy as fuck. Next book that I have over here is Me, Moth by Amber McBride. This one is a debut YA novel in verse about a teen girl who's grieving the deaths of her family and a teen boy who crosses her path. I feel like this would be a really good book for me to read if I want something a little bit faster, because it's written in verse, so it shouldn't take me too long to read it. But this seems like it could be like a hard-hitting book, and honestly, like sometimes I'm just not in the mood for that, so we'll see how this one goes. The last option over here is one that I am kind of inclined for right now because I kind of want to low-key do Summerween, which is basically like Halloween but in summer, and one of the books is like a paranormal one of the prompts is to read a paranormal book, and the prompt is to read a horror book, and I believe that this is going to be fit for the paranormal prompt, so that's why I'm kind of like aiming for this one low-key. And this one is A Dark and Shallow Lies by Jenny Myers Sane. This will be about a teen girl who disappears from her small town deep in the bayou, where magic festers beneath the surface of the swamp like water rot, in this chilling debut supernatural thriller. So I don't know, I've heard like this book just seems like really creepy, really eerie, and I feel like it might be like really good for summer, just because, like, you know, summer seems all bright and happy, and I don't know, I feel like it's like actually a good time for me to read like scary books. It doesn't seem as scary, you know what I mean? Anyway, this is a very quick intro for the books that I am potentially reading. I'm aiming for 3, but I am hoping for 2, or like minimum 2. But let's talk about The Pariah for a little bit. So The Pariah basically follows a guy. This is like his like life story in a way. His name is Alwyn, who was a boy who got like kicked out of the whorehouse because that's where his mom was, like that's where his mom is from. So he's been living there for some time, kind of like doing some like servant chores, etc., and then he gets kicked out at a certain age, and since then he falls into the outlaw path with a guy. His name is Declan Scarl. He's like a really infamous gang lord, owns the forest, etc., and one day they have this like grand scheme to kind of like take this dukedom, and he ends up like enlisting a bunch of help from a bunch of other like outlaw lords, and something happens that night where there's a huge betrayal, and he is one of the very few people who survives, and he ends up escaping them, but somehow finds himself in jail due to other circumstances. And since then he's just like figuring out like kind of like wants to get revenge, get vengeance on the ones who had betrayed him, like the entire band, the outlaw band, because at the end of the day they were kind of like family. They've been together for so long, even though there were like some crazy people, some psycho people in their outlaw like gang, but end of the day they were all kind of like family just because of the closeness they've been, all the experience that they shared, etc. And this book just basically follows his life, and right now he has a choice to either become an outlaw or if he can be a warrior. This book is definitely very, very character driven. I feel like so invested with his story right now. It's a little bit slow, but somehow I am reading it like really fast for some reason. But yeah, like it's definitely not like an action-packed book for sure, even though it's like an epic fantasy. It's more like his life story for now. So I don't know, like we'll kind of see how this goes. This has supposed to be like ancient magics, but there's no magic in here, guys. So I'm not entirely, it's basically kind of like a, you know, like this adventure kind of story about this guy. So definitely like doesn't seem like very fantasy actually, to be honest, but there's also some sort of like Robin Hood vibes to it, just based on like some of the elements that Declan was doing back when he was still Lord. Not really though, but like a little bit, like just a hint. So far I'm intrigued. Like it is a chunker for sure, but it's a really good like character driven book if that's something you like from epic fantasy. So with that to say, for this quick intro, I'm going to continue reading and then we'll see what happens with my next read, what happens after I finish this first book, etc. But so far I'm off to a pretty good note. And by the way, if this is the first time you're watching my video, please do consider subscribing and hit the notification bell. It really does help out my channel. Okay, so I finally have an update and I only have 2 minutes on my memory card, so I'm going to make this super fast. But I did manage to finish reading this book over here, which is The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. This is a chunker. It took me almost like 2 weeks to finish it, but I actually really enjoyed it. It's very slow moving. It's not what I would expect from a typical fantasy book, especially like epic fantasy, because this is categorized as epic fantasy, but there was no like mythical beings here. There was no magic involved. It was literally about this guy and just kind of like goes through his life across many years essentially. And like obviously there's gonna be a sequel. I believe this is like a trilogy or something like that, so it just, the first book just ended here, but it's very much a character driven story and it's just basically about this guy's life. There's obviously a lot of other elements going on, like war, a lot of like political intrigue, a lot of religious zealots, etc. So there's a lot of like components to this, but I don't really expect, like this is not what I think of when I think of an epic fantasy. That being said though, if this is the type of book that you really enjoy, like just reading about this guy's life or someone's life, very rich life by the way, and in like a fantasy world I suppose, but not really, because there's no like, when I think of fantasy I just think of like magical things, and that was not the case with this book at all. That being said though, like I said, I still enjoyed it. It just wasn't what it's just not what I think of as fantasy essentially. But in terms of like just reading about this guy's life and kind of how his like actions and his decisions throughout each like pivotal moments is very like just very fascinating to me. So yeah, that's all I can really say about this book. It was a chunker. It took me a very long to get through it, but I'm glad I finished it either way. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give this book like 3.5 stars, possibly. Like I want to say 4 stars, but at the same time like it was slow and like at some points kind of dry too, so I would say 3.5 stars. But yeah, that's all I can say for this book, and I will check back in once I get 2 more books, my next book. Okay, please excuse this horrible lighting. I'm actually filming in a different room right now than my like usual spot, but this is my wrap-up for this vlog, which is very disappointing honestly. This is, I did pick up my second book, which is like the last book that I was going to read for this vlog, and that was Dark and Shallow Lies. I ended up DNFing it mainly because it was so boring. I don't even know how far I got along with it because I stopped reading it maybe like sometime last week. I just had literally no motivation to read, and it wasn't that I was on a reading slump or anything, because I was reading like other books at the same time. Like I was listening to my audiobook, I was reading a physical book, and I was reading this on ebook. So I usually do have like 3 books I'm reading at the same time, and those other books I was like flying through perfectly fine. It was just this book that I was struggling with, so I know that it was this book. And it was just like, I was like, I'm gonna give it until the end of this weekend, and right now it's Thursday, so I gave it like an extra like 4 days, and since then I just have not picked up this book whatsoever. I don't even know what this book is about, to be honest. All I got to was the part where this girl's best friend had like disappeared or something, and she's now back at her like summer place, because she summers one place every summer, and this is the first time she's been back since her best friend has been missing. So everything feels like super off to her, and she's just like, you know, remembering all these memories that she's had with her best friend, and then she also bumps into this other like childhood friend of hers as well, and the 2 of them are just like, the 3 of them have been like really close this entire time, so the 2 of them are just kind of like, you know, reconnecting and like, you know, bonding over the fact that the other third person is like no longer there, and that's kind of where I got to. And it's just like really slow moving. I don't know, the premise sounded super interesting. I just remember being like super eerie. I want to say there was like paranormal things to it, and it was just like, I don't know, I struggled really hard just getting through it. Like every time I read like a page or two, I would just be like, okay, like I'm just like not interested, and then I'll just move on to something else instead. So it was a hard book for sure. But yeah, so I was about to say, really, for this particular book, it was just not the book for me. I was in the right mindset for sure. I don't know if I'll ever try to pick up this book again, but it was just like not doing it for me. Like I don't think I've ever failed this badly in terms of trying to read a book, because I usually try to get to at least a certain point in the book before I'm like, okay, let me like give up on it. But this one, I just like had no motivation whatsoever, and it's been like over a week. So I'm just like, fuck it, like I'm not going to continue struggling with this book anymore, and just like call it. But yeah, so let's say for this particular book, like I said already, just wrapping things up right now. So the other book that I read for this vlog was The Pariah, which I ended up giving, I think 3.5 stars, something like that. It was good. I don't know if I want to continue the series though, just because it's very like character driven, which I like, but it's like, it's basically just like his story. I don't think there's like a ton of actions like along everything else. Everything's like very slow moving as well, and it's not like a really big epic fantasy. Like I thought it was gonna be an epic fantasy, and it wasn't really like that. It was just more like a character arc kind of thing. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna continue the series with that either. So overall, like honestly, like August, like this vlog is like a very mediocre, disappointing vlog for me, because I felt like I didn't find a new favorite or anything like that. So yeah, hopefully my other next one will be better. I don't think I'll be doing a September one, just because I feel like I'm kind of behind right now. I think I'm gonna go straight into October and start reading some of the books there. But yeah, anyway, that's to say for this particular video, it's been so disappointing. Let me know down below which books that came out in August are you like super hyped up for, that you definitely recommend for me to pick up, because I feel like honestly it's just been a struggle for sure. But yeah, so if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up, really does help my channel. And if you'd like to see more content of me, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. As always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.